You're cosplaying, you're pretending to live. To me, life is, let me see what my limits are. Let me try something I've never tried before.
Karen is a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist. She was the first Black woman to be a columnist at the New York Daily News, one of the most important voices that we have today.
All money's not good money. All people aren't good people. And if we are selling to our people, we need to sell to our people. Every dig became an opportunity for me to flip that, and then I'm gonna rub it in your face too, because that's a lot of fun. My mother, she was very conciliatory. In many ways, she let her voice be muted.
You look at it as weakness.
But no, it's the greatest strength.
I think the same thing about my mom. I was like, I am not gonna be like you. But then that part of that comes, then you're not malleable.
I used to run away from those parts of her that were in me. Now I end up looking like her. She's the kind of person that gets things done. And I kind of think of myself as somebody that know how it's going to get done, but that's from my mother, because the things that we reject in ourselves are usually the things we need to lean into and explore more, but we don't do that either. It's allowing me to embrace those parts of myself, which I think is the journey. Open yourself up to the possibilities that you might not be this or that. It's okay to make mistakes. As a matter of fact, that is the assignment. Make the mistakes. Our job to ourselves is to find out what that special thing is. We all have different fingerprints for a reason. Why are you trying to be like somebody else?
Shame is something that I believe all of us have experienced. We may not recognize that whatever undeserved shame may be the source of our superpower.
I'm Suzanne McDowell.
I am Teri Williams. I am the great-grandchild of my honey, and you're watching Who's Your My Honey? Today, we are with a woman who, when I go around the country, you all walk up to me and say, I heard you on the Karen Hunter Show. Karen is a woman who is a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist. She was the first Black woman to be a columnist at the New York Daily News. She's founder of Karen Hunter Publishing. She's a publisher. But she also is, in my view, one of the most important voices that we have today that helps us figure out, make sense of what's going on in the world. I see her as a professor, as a teacher, and also as a friend. The kind of friend that will tell you when you need to get something right, which she has done. She has pulled my coattails on many occasions. And it has helped us build community and helped us become a better bank. And so I am so happy to introduce Miss Karen Hunter.
Wow.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
No, seriously.
You won't get me out of my bat cave for much. So I'm here.
No,
yes.
And I really appreciate it. We really appreciate it. So the reason we're here is because of an experience I had. Actually, you met him with Adonis Parker. We commissioned him to do a mural on the bank. He says, well, who are you and how did you become you? And I said, I answered his question. I said, well, I went to Brown University. Then I went to work for Bank of America. Then I went to Harvard Business School. I worked at American Express. I then met my business partner who became my husband. And we bought 4 Black-owned banks, changed our name to One United and became the largest Black-owned bank in the country. And he looked at me like, that's not what I asked you. So I thought I had the question. I just stopped and just sort of tried to reflect on why isn't this answering his question. It was an exact moment where I was like, I think it was my great-grandmother. And it was almost like I was asking him, like, could it be? We called her my honey. She owned a penny candy store. She owned a barbecue pit. She owned a juke joint. And she owned all these apartments. And I used to go with her, like, to collect rent. So I called my dad and I said, Dad, I think I'm my honey. And he's like, well, of course you are. I looked at the phone like, what? And the same thing, like when I started talking about her to all my Indian town friends, they were like, oh yeah, of course you are. It's like everybody knew it but me. Then I was like, how did this happen? Like, how did I forget her? And then I realized that when I went from Indiantown to Brown, whole new world, I became ashamed of the fact that I was from Indiantown, to the point where I just wiped it out of my whole story. Ashamed of Indiantown, ashamed coming from the South, from this little bitty town, segregated, ashamed of my great-grandmother. Like, the reason I was successful at Brown and at Harvard was because of her.
That's right.
And not the other way around.
But did they make you feel shame? Or was that self-imposed? Like, did they say something to you that made you feel like you couldn't admit that you were from this place with this grandmother, great-grandmother?
Oh, absolutely. Well, first of all, let me give you the picture. I showed up at Brown with a big red afro, a white tube
Was
top.
it dyed or your hair used to be red?
Dyed.
Okay. I'm
Peroxide.
gonna say less.
purpose.
I'm gonna say less. Go ahead.
Peroxide red.
Okay.
A white tube top
Okay.
and some lime green hip huggers.
Why? Why?
'Cause that's-
She was 18.
The combination, though. Was that what was happening in
Indiantown, Florida.
Okay. All
It was
right.
a style.
That was the
All
style.
right.
That was the style. And I land on,
Okay, what are you wearing on your feet? Jellies? What's out then? What
you know
got?
what? It's probably flip-flops. I don't know.
Flip-flops,
Probably
okay.
flip-flops.
And so this is your first time out of this area.
No, but
So you have
I didn't know Brown was Ivy League.
Okay, that's okay. So you showing up on campus, what were you expecting?
Maybe like University of Miami type vibe,
Okay,
maybe.
which is real chill.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if I had showed up looking like that at University of
been fine.
Miami,
Yeah.
I probably would have been fine. But in Providence, Rhode Island, like I didn't even own a winter coat.
Okay.
Now let me, I should say this too. I applied to all these schools, but someone told me to apply to Brown. I didn't know Brown was Ivy League. I was a kid this before the internet. I applied, they gave me the most money, I showed up. I didn't know what
I'm
that
saying
concept.
that first day, who said something was wrong
Oh
with
no,
your
it
outfit?
wasn't just the first day, Karen. It was the whole time. It was like being from the South, today.
How did it show up? This is why, like, did they have the audacity to say something to your face?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Not only that, even to this day, my friends tell me, we didn't think you were going to make it.
Wow. Okay.
Meanwhile, it was easy for you.
Yes. So from a intellectual academic standpoint, I top of my class. And to be honest, it was weird living it because I'm sitting around thinking like, why do you all not get this? The professor will be up there and people be like, what? Because of my great-grandmother. I didn't know that economics existed as a major. I went to Brown wanting to be a math teacher. I didn't even know business. I did not consider my great-grandmother to be a businesswoman.
Wow.
She was just my great-grandmother. And I would say even to this day, there's a feeling of, the South is not what it could be or not as good as, as equal as.
The South that gave us Martin Luther King and Andrew Young and
the South that gave us Terry Williams.
Exactly.
The South that gave us Frederick Douglass. I'm just saying, that
Yes,
South
yes.
that gave us Harriet Tubman.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
All
But
right.
there is a sense of, you
weird.
didn't go to a prep school, you're not from a big city, you're not from the Northeast, which is where a lot of people were from. So yeah, there's definitely a sense of like, you're not as good. And you don't deserve to be here. You don't belong. And I internalized that to the point where I just forgot, honey. So I say that, and it leads me to the question for you,
Right.
of who's your ma, honey?
Yeah.
And let me say before you answer, it doesn't have to be a person. It could be an experience or a thing, but where you experience undeserved shame. That undeserved is the part that is so important because I didn't deserve to be ashamed.
No. So I almost didn't want to be here because I don't have really that story. I've spent most of my young life being wildly delusional because I never would walk in a room being ashamed of anything or feeling less than anyone. I always thought, matter of fact, that I was probably smarter than everyone. And I was very mischievous. And, you know, so what you see today is kind of how I've always been, but you made me reflect on why. So I spent most of my life thinking I was like this because of my father, who, born in Newark, one of 8, very poor. His mother got him up at 5. He and his brothers at 5 a.m. they would have to collect bottles. His father died at an early age and left them a store, which my grandmother fed the family out of, and they lived over the store. So, growing up with rats and roaches, so my father was very meticulous, which I am, like he would get up 5 o'clock in the morning and clean the house. I would wake up to bleach every morning. The house was spotless and impeccable and stylish, and we had Waterford crystal and Lenox china, because where he came from, everything had to be in order. And he was the first to graduate from college. And he got up every morning. He had a store. So he would get up every morning at 5 a.m., go down to the store, open the store, and then go to his job, which was a parole officer. So for 18 years, that was his life. But he wasn't home much. So when I think about myself, the boldness of doing anything, this man coming from Newark, and he would tell me every day that I'm a hunter. So, there are no options here. I couldn't bring home bees. And then I had to navigate around. If I did bring home bees, it created in me this, how do I manipulate this situation so that I don't get in trouble? So I was constantly plotting, which was great. I mean, I skipped the 6th grade because I didn't want to be in the class with the kids in the 6th grade because I was hanging out with the 8th graders. So I had to come up with a plan to bring to the principal. And, I had this whole, rehearsed this thing, came in on a Friday. On Monday, she skipped me with 2 other students, which was weird because I'm like, they weren't in this meeting that I set up with the woman.
How they get in my,
Well, she couldn't justify just skipping me when other kids had good grades.
Oh, okay.
So if she was going to move. But the irony is both of them, and I followed them, didn't end up, going to, finishing college on time. And, like that wasn't their trajectory, but because she couldn't justify just skipping me. But I say all that to say, I thought that was my father. But when you started telling me about your story with my honey, I was like, I've been spending this time really focusing on him. But the person that was there all the time for everything was my mother. And because her personality, she's very, I'm direct. She's very personable. Party, like the life of the party, just nice, like I'm not. But she, what she is resilient. And I had to think about it because I've had conversation with her past couple of years. She's going to be 83. And so it's forcing me to, like she's just my mother. You don't think about her as a person. Most of us, till you get to a certain age and you're like, oh, human being who had to do all of these things to get to wherever. But I had to think about this because I got sent down south. That's why I don't think about the South that way. I spent my summers in Augusta, Georgia, and the best time of my life and some of the most amazing experiences. And that was my mother's mother. And, since talking with my mother, she actually spent her summers with her grandmother, who was literally on a plantation, as she's describing the big house and as she's describing where my great-great-grandmother lived. It was a plantation and she had to be enslaved, but she never thought about it, right? She never thought about it because that was just her grandmother, the way you don't think about these things. But I think about my mother being 20, 21, meeting my father. She was dating some guy, but if I think about my mother's ambition to not want to be stuck in Augusta, Georgia, to not have the life that all her friends and family had forever. This kid comes in from Newark, very dapper and handsome and all of the things, because he was, with his northern ways and getting run out of town because, he's not going to bend. This is early 60s. She ends up dating him and leaving and getting married, and they had to run out of town because I think they were going to try to lynch my father. So they had to get out of town. And she moves to Newark, New Jersey, eventually East Orange, not knowing anybody but this man. And then, a year later she's pregnant and she's navigating this life, working full time. So she goes from my grandmother's house into his house and not having a whole lot of life experience. She figured some things out and she never talks about it, but I know she's figured out life, because I don't know at 21, what the hell, and I know that generation had to figure some things out. But when I think about me, I always thought my mother was the weaker one in the house, because my father everything had to be his way. And her malleability, which I did as a person, I don't like that, I'm like, no compromise. But what
you
it
look
did,
at it as weakness.
Yeah, but no, it's the greatest strength. What she did for me as a person, you talk about going to college. I applied to Brown, Princeton, and St. John's because they had a great basketball team, and I wanted to be there they had that was that era. And my mother was like,
Still do, right?
Yeah. Well, I think they used to be really, really great when it
Okay.
was Mark Jackson and Chris Mullin and all.
Yeah.
But my parents wouldn't let me go to New York because they didn't have dorms. And and Princeton put me on a waiting list, and I didn't make it into Brown. So I'm sitting home.
Teri took your spot.
She probably did. But I'm glad I didn't go to Brown for a lot of reasons. And that Brown decision was because my parents had friends that they went to Brown, and everybody was talking about Brown. And I was like, and I don't even know about Rhode Island either. But I didn't have a place to go, and I was okay with that. I was okay. I was like, we'll figure it out. And my mother was like, you're going to. And so this school, Drew University, kept sending pamphlets to the house. She made an appointment. She had me out at the school. I had to do an interview. She filled out my application. I know she filled out, because I don't remember filling out any applications. She filled it out. We were on campus. Next thing I know, I'm in this school, and it was the best experience. And that would not have happened if she did the same thing for my brother. Like, my mother she's a force of nature. When my dad got cancer, she went into, crazy mode and did everything. And when he also fell on hard times, she made sure that everything was going. But I think about the resilience of, and there's no shame in it. That shame part, I don't think I have the shame gene, because again, I'm delusional. So I'm not ever considering what y'all think about it. That's on you. I don't care.
I love delusion.
Yeah, delusion is
anything done.
That is the key element.
Without delusion.
You got to tone and tune everything out. But I think about what you're saying about, like, for me, my mom was always not that strength that I thought growing up, and so I wanted to be different. Like, nobody's gonna tell me what to do. But she, man, every day I think about it, and you made me really lean in, and I want to say thank you. Thank you for forcing me to have to think about that, because as the world is crazy, the kind of people that make the world are people like my mother.
So first of all, thank you for sharing that, because I do think that is another layer that I find when I talk to people, that sometimes it's not shame, it's just recognizing that someone or some experience you had that you thought, I don't want to say was a weakness, but maybe underestimated the contribution to your...
And that's the erasure that you were talking about with your great-grandmother.
Yes.
Like, my mother is probably, and the older I get, the more I appreciate how she is, because she's the kind of person that gets things done. And I kind of think of myself as somebody that I don't know how it's going to get done, but that was from my mother. My father got up every morning and went, opened the store at work. He didn't get home most nights until 11. He'll come home for dinner. We always had dinner and watched CBS, Walter Cronkite, 6 o'clock. We had to have dinner, and then he would go back, close the store, and reconcile his books. So I didn't see him much. But my mother just kept things going and made things happen. And that, to me, is, I never knew that was me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And now here I am getting things done, and that's my mother.
Well, and it's funny because you said force of nature, and that's actually how I experience you. You're a force of nature.
We're definitely a force.
I mean, you're like...
And if there was another word in addition to nature, I would say you're a force of nature in this other word, because you're extra. You got something. You got more than other people. You got. I'm telling you is what I think. You got
Okay.
more than other people.
Again,
You're extraordinary. How about that?
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I received that. But, you
Okay.
know, to live a life as we all have, most of us don't spend time in reflection of that life. We are just living, right? We're doing our thing. So what you're doing with this is forcing people to reflect on the things that make them them, the way
Right.
Adonis did for you. And that's
Right.
important. That's
Yes,
important.
it is,
Because
it
none
is.
of us arrive anywhere without something. And whether it's epigenetics, DNA, or the influence of people in your life, we're all standing on somebody else's shoulders. We're all propelled and blown. Somebody else's wind is pushing us to another place. And, you know, I think in many ways, I probably took my mother's influence for granted because she was always there. And sometimes the people who are always there get the least amount of appreciation. So I just want to take time. And that force of nature thing, again, I don't think about it. I'm often surprised that more people aren't forces of nature for themselves, right? Because what are we doing?
So
here?
you're a little bit more delusional than most people.
Yeah.
I know I'm more delusional. I'm just saying, I go do stuff. I'm like, sorry, I did it. But
you know what though?
thought I
Your
couldn't, but I
delusion
did.
becomes everybody else's reality when you live in it, right? If you don't have any boundaries on what it is that you can do, like I feel like if I wish I had gone to Brown with you, because that was one of the things that I would do on campus. Is I was the regulator too. What you not gonna do? What you not gonna do? You're not gonna. You're not gonna. What you gonna have something to say about Teri? And so I was like the reverse bully. I was a bully of bullies. So like if you were somebody on campus bothering somebody or not reaching your full potential, you would hear from me. And so that actually pisses me off that somebody would make you feel that way.
Well, and let me say, it's sort of interesting how you talk about how you walk into a room and never feel ashamed or never feel like you don't have a right to be there. I felt the same way. It's sort of, I couldn't understand why they were making me feel this way. I didn't like, you looking at me a certain way. I don't know why, but I definitely internalized some of it to the point where they became my origin story.
Correct.
And so
like your life
sometimes, you're like, you could be confident, you could have accomplished a lot, but you left something behind, and that's really part of why I want to have these conversations, is to tell us to go back and sort of pick up something that we left behind.
Yeah.
And for me, it is my honey. I mean, it is her. It's her. Oh my gosh, it's her. But it's more than her. It's the whole journey from, till I was 17, 18 years old, till I landed on that campus. It's my whole life. It was a wonderful life. I didn't even know it wasn't wonderful. Like, what's wrong with it? You know?
Nothing.
Until I got there. Right, exactly. Until I got there and it's like, oh no, that's.
So you left behind the juke joint, you left behind the penny candy store, you left behind the barbecue pit.
Yeah.
You left all those apartments behind.
Yeah, left it all behind. So, right, exactly. But I didn't. I
was
didn't
say,
actually.
but you didn't.
I didn't, because they're with me today.
It's inside of her regardless.
Yes, it's inside of me
whether
today.
you know it or not.
But let me also ask whether or not in your journey, so when you walked into the room, did you feel like people thought you should be there?
I don't ever think about what other people are thinking about.
Well, let me say it differently.
But let me just say this, though. Yeah. I'm not somebody that likes to be around a lot of people anyway. So, to be in a room, I'm generally not going to be in the center of the room. I'm usually going to be off to the side looking or watching and observing. And I'm not somebody, I'm a one-on-one person. I don't like to talk to a whole bunch of people. I'm going to find somebody in the room that I connect with, and I'm going to talk to them. But that's never about me not feeling like I belong. I think most people are cosplaying life. So I don't have the time I'm not engaging with you. I got things to do, people to see, things to imagine, that to me is frivolous to have these, so what do you do? And all, like that's never been, and my mother's super social. So that's also the opposite, so watching her work a room, I'm like, ugh.
Meanwhile,
Meanwhile what?
That's one of the reasons you can do what you do. You're literally working the room on the radio.
No, I'm one-on-one. I'm on the radio talking to one person.
Exactly, working the person on the other.
One person. I'm talking to whoever can hear that voice. I'm not in a crowd. Like, I don't do speeches. So if you invite me to come somewhere to do a speech, I may come. But I'm going to tell you off rip, it's not going to be good, per se. I'm not someone that's going to, have a scripted thing. And then at the end, I'm going to give you this inspiration. And no, I'm talking to one person on the radio. And I'm sharing, it's an exchange. You call, we're going to talk. I have a guest, we're going to talk. It's different.
The actual physicality of it is different, but you do know you're talking to the world, right? You do know.
You say that again in my delusion. I was talking to Teri, talking to Suzanne.
She's not going to say
it. Yeah, no, I mean, in order to do what you do.
You're Karen Hunter. You influence a lot of people. People are inspired by you.
There's a reason you're sitting here.
Yeah,
okay, I appreciate that.
More than that.
But
more than that, there's a reason that you're you. I mean, okay, so let me put it differently. Something inspired you to do what you do right now.
Okay.
So you clearly saw a need that wasn't filled.
Okay.
Maybe can you just express what that need is?
Yeah, I was going to when I was, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5. My mother, the other thing she did was give me a lot of books. So she taught me how to write my name in cursive before I went to kindergarten. I remember sitting at the kitchen table so I could write my name in script. And then she bought me my first book, which was a children's Bible, and it had, David and Daniel and all of the Goliath and stuff. And so there was, this thing, and I was, precocious because I spent a lot of time with adults. So, I was with my grandmother, they would play cards and I would be at the table, my parents. And so children never, I didn't really have a lot of interaction with children. And so being around children was problematic because, again, but to answer your question, I don't, I always wanted to be a teacher, because I would hold court, I'm always telling people what to do. So it was that energy, not necessarily this is a need that needs to be fulfilled. I don't see myself as like Oprah, as a matter of fact,
you see yourself as the
so
professor that you are.
Correct. I have something to say.
Yes,
I've done the work.
Yeah.
This is what I learned.
Right.
I don't want you to make the same mistakes.
Right.
Or here's something that you may not have considered. This is the way it is, and please pay attention because this is about to happen because I know, because I've been through this. And then journalism allowed me to do what I do, which is to sit back, ask questions, observe, and then disseminate that to the people. And then I taught that. But it's not what you guys are describing as I'm inspiring. I feel like everybody's on a journey. We're all living a life, right? And if you are breathing, then you want to live the best version of that thing. And my job is to tap you on the shoulder to tell you to live. Wake up. You're not a zombie. We're gonna be okay. And here's some things that you might want to consider. Because I think a lot of us are unconscious in our everyday. We just live. We get up, we go to work, we do this, we eat the things, and we go.
What does that mean, cosplay? You're saying people are cosplaying.
Yeah,
what
because you're cosplaying. You're pretending to live. To me, life is, let me see what my limits are. Let me try something I've never tried before. Let me see what I'm actually really good at, instead of being afraid that I might be bad at it. And I think that that's where, again, some of my fearlessness comes in, is that my mother could pick up and go and live somewhere that she doesn't know and make not just she's got friends my mother makes friends everywhere. People love her, and she's very popular.
She's popular.
Yeah, she's very popular and will help anybody, is good. She's a good person. And that's beautiful. I would wake up sometimes and people in my house, I don't know. I'm like, why are these people here in the house? Okay, we'll just navigate. Somebody, anyone needed a place to stay, they could stay, and that was always something that no one can stay at my house now. But anyway, as a result, but I'm rethinking everything because I feel like that's important, that you open your life and yourself up to people where this is the connection, right? So the cosplaying, I think a lot of us don't really know who we are, what we're about, what we really want in life.
You're basically like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing as opposed to really doing it. It's almost kind of like, what do they think I should be doing? And let me go do that.
Right. Like you graduated, you had this economics degree, but you were actually driven by something deeper
Yeah.
that led you into this thing that you happen to be really good at, as opposed to I have these degrees and these things, and so I'm supposed to be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever, but
Yeah, no,
nobody's
that was-
supposed to be any of those things.
My honey was sustainable. That's what it was for you. My honey's sustainable. Can take you from there to where you are now, like all the way.
Yeah.
So can I go back to your now appreciation of your mom? Was there?
Let me just say, I always appreciated her.
Well, yeah,
But
yeah.
I just
yeah,
needed to say it
yeah.
publicly. I've always appreciated
Yeah,
her.
yeah. But in a different way, maybe
Yeah,
than to say it.
yeah.
That, but was there anything that maybe? And I'm going to say this because let me make the point. Was there anything that made you less appreciative? Was there anything that you felt on your journey that made you less appreciative of your mom than maybe you are today?
Yeah, I thought she was very conciliatory, very, it's like, not that she wouldn't fight, but like in many ways she let her voice be muted. And she, again, is somebody who can't be stopped, but I think I didn't really appreciate or see it until later. And that I used to run away from those parts of her that were in me. Now I'm looking like her. The older I get, and I'm like, she's nice looking, so I'm okay with it.
You're beautiful.
Both my parents are good
we
looking,
believe you because you're gorgeous.
No, thank you. But it's like I always was, your makeup artist, like you have nice lashes. I would say that's my dad, because my dad had the most beautiful eyes, and so these are his eyes, I think. But the older I get, I'm like, what is happening? Like
I'm becoming my mother.
more like my mom.
Yeah, and everything that I used to be annoyed by with my mother, I'm doing all of the things.
Actually related to that lady.
I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Okay, but it's allowing me to embrace those parts of myself,
Yes,
which I
yeah.
think is the journey, right?
Yes.
We're all on this journey,
Yes,
and
yes.
we won't ever have it all figured out.
No.
And this is what I say about cosplaying. But open yourself up to the possibilities
Right.
that you might not be
Right.
this or that or
Right.
this, and it's okay
Right.
to be wrong.
Yeah.
It's okay to make mistakes. As a matter of fact, that is the assignment.
Yeah.
Make the mistakes.
Yeah.
Make the mistakes and be
Yeah.
okay in it. Not to stay in it though. Don't
Yeah.
stay in the mistake, but
Yeah.
like this is how we learn how to be, right? So
What's interesting is, you say your mom's 83, and I think how she is, or how you describe her, was the way
yeah.
women were.
Yeah. I mean,
'Cause
she couldn't.
My mom was similar.
Oh
It's
my
like
God,
the
my
way.
mom was just
Yes.
like
I don't
yes.
think she could vote at 18. I'm gonna
Yeah,
have this
yeah.
conversation with her.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't think she could vote at 18. She definitely couldn't own property. She couldn't have a
Right.
credit
Credit
card.
card.
Nobody
that
was
just
giving
happened
women
in the
power.
70s.
Right.
Women didn't have power.
They had
Correct.
no power.
So,
no.
so you hear the city slicker coming in, and your
Yes.
choices are him and this guy. Then you gonna end up, y'all gonna be somewhat poor. At least this guy's ambitious. I
Right,
know
right.
he's got, he's
right.
going somewhere. I'm
Right.
going with him.
Yes.
Damn.
Yes.
Who does that?
Right,
Yeah. Like,
right.
I mean, a lot of people might have, but to go thousands of miles
Right.
into a place that nobody.
Right. Right.
I wouldn't do that.
Right.
I've never lived more
Yeah.
than 2 miles from my parents my
Yeah.
whole entire life. Like,
yeah.
until now,
Yeah, yeah.
because that's another thing. After
Right.
my dad died, 5 years later, my mom's in the church. She's a trustee and a church clerk, and she meets this guy who's been in the choir in the church, also on the trustee board, and she gets remarried. And she was really nervous about that because of my devotion to my father. Like, are you gonna be okay with this? And I'm like, are you happy?
Yeah, most important.
And she's like, yes. And so she moves to North Carolina with this guy. And let me tell you, she's living, and I'm so proud of her because, again, my impression of her was somebody stuck in this space. Like when my dad died, she had never had she always wanted a black car. And my father was very dark skinned. So he was like, I'm not going to be black in this black car. So her whole life, they could never have a black car. So the first thing we did was get her a black car, right? But to move to North Carolina, she was like, I'm never going to go back to the South. And now she's in the South, right?
Because it's her superpower.
Yeah, she's in the South. And they basically live on a farm, and she's healthier than she's ever, like they're eating off the land. And it's wild to watch her be able to change at a stage when, she lost a lot of
Most
weight and
people,
she's
yeah,
like
yeah.
doing her thing
Most
even
people
more
would
so.
stop. They would be like, all
Yeah,
right,
it's like,
I'm done.
oh, I'm at a certain age. She's like, nope.
Yeah.
Let her hair go gray. So I'm like, me too. Let's all do it, and I'm really, really proud of her. And yeah, that.
I definitely think that, like, I remember, like, this, like, kind of, like, inherent weakness. Because I think the same thing about my mom. My mom was very, like, I was like, I am not going to be like you. I am going to be so strong because you are weak. And that's like what I thought for a long, long time. That's where I am. Because I did not ever want to be. I didn't want to not have my own money. I didn't want to be weak like my mom. I didn't want somebody pushing me around. And so I was like, I'm not going to be weak. But then that part of that comes with the fact that you're not malleable. Then you are like, rah. You know what I mean? And there's got to be
Balance.
a balance, which is what I've learned.
So as you reflected on this story of my honey and your mom, and you think about our community, so I want to broaden it.
Mm-hmm.
What lessons do you think? I'm gonna use myself.
Yeah.
Like, what lessons do you think my experience has for our community?
First of all, any place we are, we're supposed to be. Number one, or you wouldn't be there. And you put yourself there. So this is yes. Number two, like we should also stop. I always hear people tell me, oh, they're not going to let you do, or they're not going to let us do. And I said, who are they? Where are they? Let's confront them.
And says who?
Out. Yeah. I mean, but we have already built these barriers to what we can do in our own minds. Even you, well, no matter what they said to you, well, obviously you didn't listen because you're Teri Williams. You still went on and did all of the things, and I don't know where they are right now. I'm sure they're successful, but maybe not. But
they're not as successful as
they're
her.
not. They're not, and that's okay. They can still
for a rounded amount of reasons,
correct.
Not just
and a lot of the things that they were saying reveal their own insecurities, because why are you concerned about this girl's tube top things and the flip-flops?
I wish I had a tube top.
Yeah, like there's some built-in, baked-in jealousy because you're just being. Why is that a problem? So that's a them problem, not a you problem. So most of the problems people bring to you are them telling on themselves about their lack and their smallness and the things that they don't feel good about. So the only way they can feel good is to put you down. Once you recognize that, then it makes it almost like, ha, oh, you worried about me? Okay, that must be
You're like,
amazing.
I'm taking up room in your head? Okay,
yes.
good. All right,
how amazing am I? So that's the other thing. And as a community, everything that has ever been, started on a continent that we now call Africa. Every human being, every life force, every math, science, everything that was invented and ever created is in all of us. So our job to ourselves is to find out what that special thing is. I always tell people we all have different fingerprints for a reason. Why are you trying to be like somebody else? We are all individuals who are supposed to be, I think of humanity as like 6 billion, 7 billion explosions of pieces that have to come together to make one whole picture. And each of us have a role in that, coming together. What is that unique shape? What is that unique thing that you bring to humanity that makes it whole?
Like, what's your little puzzle piece?
Yeah, what is it?
I mean,
what is it?
That fits right in.
Everyone wants to be the next, used to be Bill Gates. I think no one wants to do that anymore. But we had these people we were aspiring to be. Like if you were in entertainment, you wanted to be Oprah. If you were in business, you wanted to name a business person, as opposed to being your unique self in whatever it is that you were driven to do. That I think, and less than delusion. That's the thing that I know, and it's not delusional because every time I do whatever it is I imagine, it happens. So that's the other lesson.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine, waking up, awaken your imagination to the possibilities. Donna said something. No, actually, it was the young man that sits out there. What's his name? The one.
Jay.
Jay said, where he comes from, is this neighborhood that's poor or whatever, and their path to success is very limited. Him coming outside of that, going to prep schools and all of this, gave him a broader perspective of what success would be or what his options were. that they could never see because, inside your small view of yourself in your neighborhood, you don't really open up to see what the
That's why
possibilities.
environment is so important.
Yeah, so we have to see a thing to be a thing, which
yeah.
is why it's also important for those of us who have quote unquote made it
Mm-hmm.
to, I often think we should stop moving outside and stop moving out of the community. Stay in the community, build where you are, which you have done, Teri. Like build where you are so that all of the children and everybody can see what the possibilities are. But if you haven't done that, know that the possibilities are endless and it requires something of you to imagine greater things for yourself. So that's it.
You're reminding me, first of all, thank you for that, because those are lessons coming from Professor Hunter.
I'm uncomfortable with
No,
that.
The
That's
figurative
so
and
weird.
literal hunter.
Yeah. That was some kid. His parents sent me an email that their child was. I've been on the radio now 12 years, and their child was raised in the car, and they didn't know that my name was actually Karen Hunter. They thought that was the show, that I was a Karen Hunter. So that
Like
was
you hunted Karens.
That was the show. That's what I'm doing. And I was like,
I'm a Karen Hunter.
Yeah, well, they can catch these verbal hands as well. But well, I was like, it's cute. It's cute. Yeah.
So, but you just by telling that lesson, giving us that lesson, you reminded me of another Indian town experience I had. At this point, I was in Boston. And this was during the time when you actually got a newspaper, a physical newspaper.
Yay, I miss those times.
I know, I do. And so I get up and I go and New York Times, and I pick up the paper, off the stoop. And I look at it, and it's a big picture, and the whatever you call it, the credit under the picture said Indiantown, Florida.
I'm from Indiantown.
Front page, above the fold,
What?
New York Times. I'm like, what? So, of course, I'm just like, what could this be about? Come to find out that one of the biggest solar systems, plants in the world is in Indiantown, Florida.
Wow.
Okay. Now, this is the scary part. White folks lived here. Railroad track. Black folks lived here. Booker Park. I never went past Booker Park. After Booker Park, Florida Power and Light.
Wow.
Solar power plant, biggest in the world. All that technology
Just
was
right
being
there.
right there.
Right under your nose.
Right there. Yeah. Right past Booker Park.
That might be delusion. That's delusion. Like you look over there, you don't see it, but look at it now. It exists.
Well,
it was right there.
It was just, but it goes to that point, like open yourself up.
Yeah.
Like never went past my neighborhood.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the kind of lessons that we, so whether it's my honey's grandchild or Indiantown is the place that has the largest solar plant in like the world, like there was something there. And by the way, it didn't even have to be that. You know what I mean?
Could have been anything.
It could have been anything, but just to recognize, yes, that undeserved shame is undeserved.
Yes.
That's really the bottom.
That whatever flaws you think you have them. That they can be a superpower. I was also talking to Jay. I did a book with this young. Well, he's not that young anymore. With this man who had his both legs amputated above the knee as a baby. So he spent all of his life with no legs, and he just did an Ironman triathlon, and his book is called Iron Will. But spending time with him, it's like, okay, he puts his legs on. Like I just hung out with him, and he just went to Africa to help children who also. He's living such a full life, and most people would look at that as like, oh, woe is me. I have no legs. Life is over. He is killing life because he doesn't see this as a limitation, but as a superpower. And again, to your point, if we just travel more, if we spent more time with people, your My Honey allowed you to see yourself more broadly. Having this conversation allowed me to see my mother, which allows me to be more of myself, because the things that we reject in ourselves are usually the things we need to lean into and explore more, but we don't do that either.
It's
so
hard.
this is the This is the point. And
this is
you're
the
gonna
point.
you're gonna
Yes.
get it wrong more than you're gonna get it right. And
Yeah.
that's okay too.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
always say like
Yeah.
I'm wrong 50% of the
Yes,
time.
I'm wrong 50%.
I feel like we're all
Alright,
wrong
that's-
50% of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We try though. Keep
Kara's like,
yeah.
no,
progress.
I'm more like
Yeah.
25, but maybe
yeah,
10.
I was gonna argue with you on that. But you know, even 50% is still like, you know, if I batted that in baseball, I'd be a freaking
Exactly, right. Exactly. Yes.
I like power over myself, not over. When you think about power, you know, most people, we've been conditioned to think about power as power over some people or entities. I like the ability to be able to do whatever it is I want to do. And that to me is power, and that's freedom. I love that. And I would never give it up for anything in the world. I will fight you on that. But I think we all should like that. We should all like to
I'm
have
with
the
you. I
power.
like
to-
it.
It's sort of
move
like
freely.
empowerment.
Yeah. I mean, but we play with language. This culture of ours has conditioned us to think about language in such a very narrow way, you know, and it's twisted too. It's very twisted.
So another story that we have as our notes is your experience as a sports editor or sports journalism.
Yeah.
What? I mean, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
It makes sense though now that you told me about your basketball history. It makes sense that you would have.
I mean, that was the short story. Became a sports editor out of college because there was a newspaper. My mother was like, yeah, you have this degree. Oh, she would get up every Saturday morning and raise my blinds. It would be like 7:00 in the morning, and I had to clean the house.
Did you hear Rise and Shine?
No, I didn't get that. It was just like brightness. The
Like,
sun was out,
get your
and
butt
you
up.
got to get
That's
up.
what you heard.
So like, house had to be clean before I could watch cartoons or do anything else, which was, you know. So that habit was instilled in me. But also, I graduated. I'm home, and she throws me a newspaper, and it's like, find you a job, and I'm like, what? Oh, do you cook, clean? What are we doing here? I got to get out and work now. So she gave me a newspaper. They had classifieds back in the day. Teri knows about newspapers.
Yeah.
And so there was a job for reporter at a local, it was something called the News Record. It was a local newspaper in my town. And I grew up, we actually subscribed to the paper. So I went and interviewed, and the woman who was running the paper, she owned it. She was like, well, there's another job open. And I was like, what is it? She's a sports editor. And I was like, okay. She said it pays $35 more. I was like, I'll take it. She didn't know. She's like, well, I don't know anything about sports. I was like, okay, we'll figure it out together. So I got that job based on it paying more. And all I did was take the Star Ledger, which was my local paper there, the big paper, and I would just read their stories and kind of like not copy.
You make up a news story. Make up a news story.
Yeah, no, but I would follow their style, and you know, because she didn't know anything, and we literally had to paste the paper together. I had to write the captions and the cut lines and the pictures, and we had to literally with the little
the X-Acto knife.
Yeah, and the glue and all, and then it went to the press.
And it
was a big press there. So so I learned how to put together a newspaper, but I was a sports editor because it paid more, not because of my sports acumen. But it was the thing that allowed me to catapult my career because there were very few at the time women, and there were definitely very few Black people. And working there allowed me to get a job at the Star Ledger. I was there at that newspaper for like 6 months, and then I ended up at the Star Ledger, the paper that I was actually copying from, not plagiarizing. And because they saw my style, which was their style. This looks like our style. This looks like our style. So I copied their style.
It looks familiar.
And then from there, I ended up at the New York Daily News. I was there for 8 months, got fired from that job because I went on job interviews at the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the Daily News while I was on vacation. And somebody at the Daily News called and told them they had just given me a raise and a new position to take care of all women's sports. I was in charge of all women's sports, and they were so pissed off at me that
for interviewing?
Yeah, that how dare you?
It was like,
how dare you?
You just got the best job, and now you want another job.
You Black, and I know part of that too was,
who do you think you are?
Yeah, who do you think you are? And I drove the same car that the owner of my father bought me my father bought me a BMW for graduation because he could, and you know, he liked to make sure that my mom got a new car every 2 years. Yeah. So I had the exact same car as the guy that owned the damn outlet, and so I would same color and everything. So he probably was just like, I'm so sick of her.
Who do you think you are?
And then you're going to go leave
You
after
had
I
the
gave
nerve.
you a raise and all. But at the time I was 21 and I didn't understand politics or whatever. I was like, he took me in the room and said, we looked at your work while you were gone and it's not up to par. These were the exact words. And it rings in my head to this day because it felt wrong. I'm like, how do you give somebody a raise and put them in charge of all women's sports when it's not up to par? We looked at your work while you were gone and it's not up to par. So I couldn't log in when I got in. I was like, what's going on? They were like, he wants to talk to you. And I was like, get your stuff and get out. I was like, what is happening? Like, I was devastated. I've never been fired before for not being up to par. Like, what? Me? So I'm getting my stuff, going out to the parking lot, and one of the editors runs out and he was like, this is what happened. They heard that somebody call and you were looking for a job and but it still didn't make it better because I'm still fired. But that not up to par thing stuck with me. And fortunately, and this is where the relentlessness of my mother comes in, I ended up calling the New York Daily News like every day because now I don't have a job.
And now you're mad.
And I'm mad, I'm hurt. And I called them every day, made friends with Dolores Thompson, who was the secretary to the sports editor. And again, I figured that was an easier way for me to get into whatever it is I was going to do because there weren't a lot of people who looked like me in that position. And I didn't know that they had just been sued for racism. I didn't know any of that. But I ended up, about 3 weeks later, getting hired there. And, but I was so ringing in my head with that, you're not up to par, that I went to the Barnes & Noble, bought every book on writing, every book. And I had those books in my desk that you were not, and this is another lesson for young people, made friends with all of the Black editors at the Daily News. They were. And before I sent my piece to the man, made them all give me my feedback, tell me what I need to do better. And then I would send it off to them, to the people. And I ended up ascending at the Daily News, but it was community again. It was not just being by myself thinking I'm great, but yeah.
You were smart enough to ask for help.
Yeah.
And just that not up to par, that's what they were saying to me.
Yeah, that's their catchphrase, right?
It was sort of
Who
like
do you think
there.
you are?
Yeah, like you're clearly not up to par. How'd you get here? And
did you sneak in the back door?
It was also interesting that your solution, you referenced your mom. You said it was the mom in you that's just like, you ain't gonna tell me that.
Yeah, nah,
not gonna be.
Yeah,
not gonna be.
That's the first time I cried over losing a job. But there is something about that loss too, that had that not happened at a young age, the resilience to be able to go, oh, this is all, people will say things to you because, they have to justify. I mean, he had to justify, how do you fire somebody?
Right.
You have to have a justification.
Right.
But that you laid that on me and you knew that was a lie.
Right.
Oh, people will lie to you. Like that was like, what?
Because they want to get out. Yeah.
They will just say anything to you.
Right.
Okay, so now you have to know what reality is, even in your slight delusion. You have to know, am I good enough? Okay, if I'm not, then let me make sure that I am.
I am.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So that's the other thing. I'm going to be overly good. You're not going to have. So after a month of being at the Daily News, I had a front page story on the Sunday paper, which was circulated about 1 million copies back then.
Above the fold.
Yeah, front page above the
front page
fold.
right.
Yeah,
front page
on a kid.
The news was the front page.
Yeah. It was a sports story of a kid that was homeless and one of the best basketball stars in the country. And I ended up, talking with his mom, and we did this whole thing. And I remember the racist that was working with me at the time was like, I've been here 20 years and I've never done anything. I said, well, you need to work a little harder.
You ain't got a good story.
Yeah, I was like, you're not up to par.
I told a good story, right?
Yeah, take that, But yeah, that was the greatest get back because I was also experiencing racism within the department because I apparently took a white boy's job. And he, when they asked him to do something, he told them to get the N-word to do it. Because I remember it's like, what is going on here? And Dolores, she was like, oh, you don't have to ever worry, because this is what this is. And I was like, oh, it's really nasty. It's a den of vipers here. Good. Okay.
Now you know.
Yes. Oh, we can get busy now. Now that I know y'all are just fragile.
Because you can hunt those vipers.
I'm gonna get them. Yeah, but it forced me to outwork everybody there and just be more talented because I just was anyway. But I was not shrinking from that. You know, you weren't gonna let me. I was gonna put it in your face. Oh, work harder. Oh, I'm sorry that you're not as good as I am. Oh, this is what the black people do. Because he came back, he said, I was in Brooklyn, in your neighborhood, nobody messed with my car. I was like, I'm from Jersey, first of all, number one. Number two, no, what are you talking about? So when the front page piece came out, it was like, yeah, this is what black people do. I'm only here because I'm black, because it was a lawsuit, because that's the other thing. Oh, you're only here because you're black. Okay, take this. Oh, what else? Oh, okay. So it became like motivating.
You're above par. Now you're above par.
Yeah. Like every dig became an opportunity for me to flip that, and then I'm gonna rub it in your face too, because that's a lot of fun. Yeah, that's a lot of fun. Yeah. Yeah, but I love the demure way that my mother would never do that. By the way, she's always gonna take the high road. That's not me.
There was an interview of Cardi B where someone asked her, he says, oh, you know, Michelle Obama, you know, she says, you know,
when you
go high.
She's
like, is that what you do? She was like, hell no. I go, way low, to hell low.
Yes,
you know?
Yes.
Anyway,
yes,
I thought that was cute.
Yeah. When they go low, send them to hell.
Yeah, send them to hell. Right.
Look at what she's accomplished. You can't even be mad at her.
Which also is a message. I think there are many different ways to get to wherever you need. Because some people are not the send them to hell type people.
Right.
And you need to know that. You need to know, I don't have that in me.
Right.
There's another way. Like my mother's way is so effective.
Yeah. Yes.
Not gonna be my way,
Yeah,
and it's okay. There's space for everybody to find their way.
But there's parts of her way that you probably integrate into your way.
That is true. I do that secretly. That's secret. I do that secretly.
Don't tell anybody.
Yeah, that's a one-on-one. That's when you do the behind the scenes stuff. Nobody needs to know that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell your mom.
Suzanne.
So thanks. First of all, you are amazing.
Thank you.
And really appreciate you sharing with us your mom, your journey, and your ability to rise above maybe what my dad would say, people trying to put a monkey on your back.
Mm.
He always says to me, don't let them put that monkey on your back. And you don't let anybody put a monkey on your back.
That below par was a monkey on your back?
Yes, he's trying to put it on you.
Yeah.
And that's what I think our community, our audience, whoever is watching this, I think there are going to be moments when we feel that monkey on our back, or we feel like we're being shamed undeservedly. And hopefully they will channel you and your story and what you've shared with us today, because nobody deserves to carry that shame.
No,
I don't know.
agree.
Not for a second, let alone years. I also want to thank you because we've been on this journey together. You know, it's sort of funny. You shamed me into coming to Urban View. So you got on the radio and said, this is the largest black-owned bank, and we ain't heard nothing from them. And right after that...
She did. She's like, call them up.
Yes. She said, we're the Urban View, and we ain't heard nothing from the largest black-owned bank. And right after that, I called you, and we had a great interview, and I was like, I want to be where you are. And we've been together. We've been a sponsor of Urban View
and we
for,
thank you.
I don't know now, how many
10
years? 10
probably,
years, maybe. Yeah. And it's been wonderful. You have helped us grow. I mean, there were times when I know your listeners would call and say, I got this problem, and you'd send it to me. And we'd follow up. We've tripled in size since we've been with you.
Yeah, I got to see the call center today.
Yeah, got to see the call center that used to be like 5 people and is now, you know, a huge call center. You got to see our artists in residence, didn't exist before.
Yeah, beautiful.
But we, you know, really appreciate our journey together, and we really appreciate you and Urban View as a place to communicate with our community. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. This is everything we do should be in service of one another. You know, I think the relationship between us and sponsors, even coming into SiriusXM, I was like, yeah, no, all money's not good money. All people aren't good people. And if we are selling to our people, we need to sell to our people, through people who are part of the community that we can challenge and also, you know, go back and forth with and elevate. And it's not just about, oh, I don't like this, but how do we fix it? So you have been absolutely, I remember one incident in particular where I was like, Teri, you know, I called you up and you were like, can I come on? And I was like, yes. And we had a conversation. That was really powerful for the audience to see, because when do we get a chance to have a conversation with the owner of a bank, you know, about something? But it was beautiful. And thank you for always being open.
Yeah. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Suzanne and I would like to thank our executive producers, Kobe Proctor, Anya Mendoza, and Jessica Hurley, as well as the entire One United Bank, Circle of One Marketing, and Epic Media team. The Who's Your My Honey show was created in collaboration and produced by One United Bank and Epic Media. Recorded at the Hive Studio, this series is to amplify stories that transform undeserved shame into superpower, the resilience and leadership skills needed to build generational wealth and economic empowerment.